So let's talk a little bit about the roadmap that we're going to be using for this class. It actually goes back a very long way, all the way back to the 3rd century, with the writings of Origen, who was one of the greatest of the church's early theologians. He was entranced with the writings of Solomon, and he believed that 3 of Solomon's books were key to understanding the spiritual development of the Christian life. First of all, he thought that the book of Proverbs taught us how to be virtuous. And so this book taught us how to bring our morals into conformity with the will of God. Second was the book of Ecclesiastes. And this, he thought, taught us about detachment. And this brought our intellect into conformity with the will of God. And finally, the highest stage of attainment for him was represented by the book, the Song of Songs, which for him was about contemplation. And for him, the locus of conformity for that book was our own spirit, bringing that into conformity with the will of God. Now, Bonaventure and many other theologians reworked these 3 main stages of spiritual development into what emerged in medieval Christianity as the 3 ways: purgation, illumination, and union. Purgation, very similar to Origen's notion of virtue, right? Being cleansed and so forth. Illumination, very much about the mind. So very similar to Origen's ideas of detachment. And then, of course, union is very similar to contemplation, because, in fact, it is through meditation and contemplation that we are able to attain or to realize this kind of union. So influential is this map, purgation, illumination, and union, in fact, that the structure of the Mass conforms to it. Just think about what happens during the Mass. One of the first things that happens, of course, is the confession. In other words, a purgation. The next major thing that happens in the Mass is the reading of the Word and the explication of the Word in the sermon. In other words, the mind, illumination. And then what happens at the end of the Mass? There is, of course, communion, union. So even our weekly worship is designed to reinforce these 3 stages of mystical attainment. Early in the 20th century, an Anglican writer named Evelyn Underhill wrote a marvelous book about these stages, but she added a 4th. She added kind of a first stage, what I'm going to call a stage 0. She calls it awakening. And this is kind of how God gets our attention so that we can even begin the 3 stages of mystical attainment. Now, at every stage of our spiritual growth as Christians, what theologians often call sanctification, there are important discernments to make. In the next few weeks, we'll be looking at exactly what sorts of discernments people make at various stages in their spiritual lives. We're going to be making some of those discernments ourselves, and we'll practice helping other people as they make those discernments for themselves.